Hello chess family, it's me National Master, Jesse James, and today we're in for another installment of how to play the Accelerated Dragon, and upon a popular request we're going to be going over how to play against the Maroczy bind. The Maroczy bind, as you can see, is a very strong way to play against the Sicilians in general. Basically, you get your pawn to c4 and e4, and this is very strong because it stops our main pawn breaks to attack, which is d5 and b5. So let's go ahead and see how I set up against this and get a very good game out of it. All right, here we go. My opponent started off with e4, c5 Sicilian. You know, that's how we do it around here. Knight f3, g6. Now we're getting to a hyper-accelerated dragon. We're trying to get our dragon bishop out. Pawn to d4, of course, controlling the center. Pawn takes, knight takes. Bishop g7, developing and attacking the knight. Here we're going to be bringing out our pieces and, of course, controlling the d4 square. Pawn over to c4, and now we see it. They have played what is called the Maroczy bind. And as I had said earlier, this is very strong opening for white because it can kill a lot of black's counterplay. Now, Sicilian is supposed to be known as a very aggressive opening, but if you play this opening as white, you can pretty much stop a lot of play, unless black knows how to create good counter chances against it. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, they don't know how to do this. So please recognize the setup and learn where the weak squares and the important squares are. Here I continued with developing with the threat, knight c6, bringing my knight out and attacking on d4. And of course, white plays the best move, knight back to c2. Now you can also play bishop to e3 here, but I like this move, knight to c2. The rule is whenever you have more space, as you can see, white has more squares in the center, you should stop trades. So knight c2 gets played for now, stopping trades that black does have main lines to play. Typically, if you can make two minor trades like knights and bishops, typically not this bishop because this one's very important, then you should get an equal game because black is lacking space. So if two trades of minor pieces should help you alleviate that kind of pain. Anyways, back to the game. Knight out to f6, developing and attacking the e4 pawn. Knight to c3, developing and defending. And of course, we're going to go ahead and castle. And here white has a choice of where they want to put the bishop to. I think the best place is on e2. You don't really want to play on d3. There's not much attacking chances, as much as white is trying to keep control over the d5 square, and the queen is just going to be a lot more centralized like this. And here, well, after you've done your basics of development, here you need to choose about where you're going to move your bishop to, or just develop it in general. Now, the rule is if you can play d5 in these games without losing, this is typically going to be the best move. As you can see here, white is clamped down on it. 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces already attacking on d5, so we're not playing it this time. Simple chess, let's just play the pawn to d6. And here, white goes ahead and castles, and here was one of my main ideas. So when you're playing this opening, it's almost like playing most other Phi and Kettle lines. You're going to be playing on the dark squares, meaning the bishop is very strong. We want to give this bishop more squares to control. Well, how do you do that? You can see that white is doing a good job by controlling these. Here we're going to play the idea of a5. The idea is very simple. We're going to play pawn to a4, and maybe even pawn to a3 if this knight moves. And by doing this, white typically goes pawn to b3, and as you can see, this is going to make the dark squares weak on this diagonal. And this is going to help you create counter chances whenever they do this. The other idea is to give squares for the queen. The queen is not going to be well placed on c7 as the knight goes to d5. The queen's not going to be well placed on b6, again knight to d5. So I found out one of the best squares is actually a5. And some other ideas are knight to d7 to c5. Again, put your pieces on the dark squares. All right, here we go. White went ahead and played bishop over to e3, and let's continue with our plan. Pawn to a4. White goes ahead and plays rook over to c1. Queen to a5. Now, you're more than welcome to bring the bishop out. Typically, the bishop's best squares are going to be d7 or e6. e6 typically when you're going to be trading off the bishop for the knight. We call this the Maroczy hop. The knight goes to d5. All right, white goes ahead and plays queen to d2. The queen d2 is definitely a good square to move it to, but here there's definitely some tactical ideas. And here I found an opportunity to go ahead and make my first set of trades. Remember, 2 sets of minor pieces is very good for you, particularly these two, because these are your worst pieces. This knight and this bishop are going to be the best pieces to keep on the board for you. So here I saw that I could play knight to g4. And some people are saying, well, doesn't the bishop just take? It does take, and this is actually good for us. You could say, well, isn't this knight better than this bishop? So the argument here, I would say, is remember we were trying to prepare b5 pawn move? Well, it's really hard to play it. As you can see, 1, 2, 3 pieces are actually aimed over here. But if they lose this bishop, they're going to get more control over this b5 square. So, and by the way, if you can win this bishop, the dark square, black is typically better because then this bishop becomes unrivaled. So it'll be a very good attacking piece and a very good defending piece. They take, we take. Pawn to f3, they're making this pawn structure. This is why they trade off the bishop. With all the pawns on the light squares, their bishop is typically bad. That's okay, my bishop jumped back to e6. So now I have pressure on the c4 pawn, which is unprotected. And here my opponent goes ahead and plays knight to d5, the Maroczy hop. Here they think this is good for them, but here we're going to go ahead and get plenty of counterplay now. So it's black to move. What do you play here? Here, it's actually kind of tricky. Should you take the b2 pawn, or should you trade the bishop for the knight? Or maybe should you trade the queen? All these are actually very good ideas. You just have to make sure you do them in the right order. Unfortunately for me, I played it in the wrong order. I was able to win the b2 pawn, but I was a little bit afraid of rook to b1 here. And then the b7 pawn either gets lost, or maybe even bishop b6 gets played. And, well, things get a little bit crazy here. With that being said, I missed an idea here, which we'll see in the main game. So here, because of this, I went ahead and played bishop takes d5, which is an okay move. Remember, this bishop is not doing much anyways, and this knight's just too strong, so just get rid of it. Here, pawn takes, and then we go ahead and play queen takes queen takes queen here. The endgame is actually going to be very good for us. Bishop takes, and then the knight jumps to e5 here. The idea here is we're looking at all these dark square weaknesses. And also, we want to try to get our rook over to the c file, as this is the only way in and out. There's only one open file. We should try to control this. So, bishop to c3 gets played. And here it is black to move. What do you play here to win a pawn? Alright guys, if you haven't already, go ahead and give us that like and subscribe. Remember, liking this video and share this with more chess players. Here we get to play the very nice move of knight to d3, and this is pretty much just winning on the spot here. Remember, this knight is going to be attacking the b2 pawn and the rook here on c1. And the significance of that is that, well, when the rook's being attacked, we're going to be able to control the c file once it moves away. And here, white did not play the best way, but they did give me a very good game. Here they went ahead and played rook over to d1, and here we can just snack on a pawn. What do you play here? Simple chess, knight takes on b2. Wait a second, earlier you said that doesn't rook b1 get played? Here we're going to find that move that actually saves a pawn and then just gets us into an easy winning endgame. Bishop takes. Here, they're more than welcome to trade over here on g7. This was definitely their best try, but they did miss it. Either way, we would have been playing the same move as we are going to play right now. So bishop takes, bishop takes. This is going to be slightly worse because this bishop is a lot better than this knight. Even though the pawns are all on light squares, this bishop is very active because we made the dark squares weak with our pawn structure. Here my opponent played rook b1 thinking they were going to win the pawn back on b7, but here was the move I had missed. Pawn to a3, and now everything is just gravy, everything's good. One of the good things about this is the bishop controls c1, which means we're going to be able to control the c file, they will not. Here they definitely could have put up a better resistance, but unfortunately for them, they did miss a key move and end up losing the game very fast. Now, white went ahead and played knight to b4, decent looking move. The idea is to go knight to d3 and get the knight to kick this bishop out the way so they can either win the bishop or win the pawn on b7. Here's your question. We should play the rook to c8, but which rook do we use? Do we use the f rook or the a rook? I can't believe I messed up this time and I chose the wrong rook. If you ever are curious which rook you should use, always use the least active rook, but also think about where the game is being played at. Is this game getting played on the queen side, in the center, or the king side? Obviously, it's all about the queen side, so here the rook is not going to be doing much. There's no king side attack, so I should have played the rook over f to c8. That's okay. Rook a c8 got played, which is still a decent move. My opponent played knight to d3, and just on time, bishop goes to d4 check. Now, you could also play the rook over to c2, but like I said before, this bishop is actually very active. So here I played bishop d4 check, king h1. Here you can play pawn to b6, but remember, try to be as active as possible. Keep making threats. Here I played rook c3, attacking the knight. And here, my opponent probably should have just moved the knight somewhere. Or it's even saying here rook after d1, which I'm very happy to see that too. But here they made a tactical mistake and lost the game after rook to b3. It is now black to move and win. What do you play here? All right, hopefully you push pause, or maybe you just got the tactic really fast because you're very good at them. With black to move, what do you play? Simple chess. Here we're going to go ahead and look for the forced moves. So we're going to play rook takes on b3. And if they don't take back, they're just down a rook. Pawn takes, and here hopefully you spot the idea. There is no good way to stop this pawn from queening. Here I played pawn a2, and my opponent just resigned. So remember, guys, this was a tutorial or basically an explanation of how to get counterplay against the Maroczy bind. Go ahead and look for this idea of playing pawn to a5. Remember, the idea is to push the pawn up as soon as possible and try to make the dark squares weak. Also think about where you're going to be developing your queen to. Queen a5, I have found, has been one of the best places. Try to trade off 2 minor pieces, typically the knight on f6, and this bishop on c8, as these guys are just not helping you out in this game. Try to make those trades and then attack on the queen side. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you in the next video.